Hello and welcome to Saturday Night Showdown with me, Josh Howie. Coming up on tonight's show, we're approaching the first anniversary of the Hamas-led attacks on southern Israel that killed over 1,000 people. As protesters march on the streets of London with pro-Hezbollah banners, I'll be giving my thoughts on what the future holds for the West. Kemi Badenoch said that not all cultures are equally valid. Is she right? We'll be getting deep into that one. And Dawn Butler has released a strange, arguably racist, black nationalist poem in which she declares that she's one of the chosen ones, hey, that's my shtick, and that you do not matter. There's all that and much, much more. This is your Saturday Night Showdown. And discussing all of tonight's topics, we have my brilliant panel, Kasia Noble and Andrew Eborn. I'm joined tonight by Kasia Noble and Andrew Eborn. How are you both?
Good.
Sorry, that was pretty heavy. Heavy start.
I have to share your fear, and this is the problem, Josh, on a number of levels. First of all, I'll make it really clear, I'm pro-peace. I think, as you rightly say, it was abhorrent what happened on October the 7th. There are all sorts of questions as to how that arose. But also, there have been tragedies on both sides, and the first casualty in war is the truth. What's happening as a result, the horrible hate that spilled out onto our streets as a result of it, people are right to be scared. Nobody should be living in fear. When you have people trying to go to the Jewish schools and so on and so forth, you're seeing red paint splattered over that. That is abhorrent and it should be called out. It took the BBC far too long to call Hamas a proscribed terrorist organisation, which they are. And it's illegal in this country under the Terrorism Act not to basically say that you disagree. You mustn't support a terrorist organisation. What we have to do, though, is look at the tragedies on both sides. And we need to try and find a way forward, as you say, look for the future. My biggest concern as well is what the government's going to do as a result of it. Because fear, and it was Edward Bernays, the father of PR, turn around and say, basically, it's the biggest human emotion is fear. So you can sell anything to that sort of basis. If the government uses that to impose all sorts of laws on us and take away some of our fundamental rights, that's going to be a problem.
You know, they're there every day, they're banners, and they're getting more... And, like, no sensitivity. It's coming up to the 7th of
and you're right about sensitivity. And what happens
at all.
On both sides, people get desensitised when you see the abhorrent pictures. And I say truth is always the first casualty in any war. You see the abhorrent pictures, you hear the statistics, and we get numb to those statistics.
A lot of that stuff is, by the way, is false that's coming out on
And that's
Twitter.
why I say question everything. You need to question everything.
From Syrian earthquakes.
Yeah.
And there's being fact-checked saying, look, we can actually show you this is the footage that happened in Syria in 2019. I was like, why are you saying it's happening in Gaza?
A child starving actually turns out to
yes, so much of it.
Be back in Syria
so much
again.
of it. It's not just a little bit. I'm not saying there are not children dying, there are, and it's terrible.
Yeah.
And Israel needs to do everything it can to prevent children being killed. It has to do more. I believe it has to do more.
Absolutely.
But they are now pushing out fake footage from other catastrophes, which, by the way, got no protests. Got zero.
Well, that's, of course,
And you have to call it...
No Jews, no news.
We started on this sort of debate. I do a series called Fake or Fact on this very channel, and we had to look at those sort of stuff. We looked at some of that footage, and you say, yes, it's been reutilised, actually on both sides, and that's what we need to look at. So the reality is, I say that we need to be pro-peace. We need to find a way forward. The point that you made in your brilliant monologue at the beginning was exactly that. There's been tragedy on both sides. We need to find a way forward.
I'd argue that one side doesn't want peace. That's one thing I would say. Exactly, 8,000 plus rockets.
But there are lots of questions to be answered. I think October the 7th was horrendous. What was known beforehand, because people showed the things about people rehearsing footage and so on and so forth. A lot of people, I understand, I've interviewed a lot of people from Israel as well, who sort of turned out 50% of them, more than 50%, don't support Benjamin Netanyahu. They want to find a way forward for peace. The other point to make is that obviously not all Palestinians are Hamas. So you can't, and looking at the tragedy on that sort of side, I also live in central London, very close to the BBC, and you see we had a fantastic community. We have the Israeli ambassador there, we have America there, we have obviously lots of synagogues and so on and so forth. And everybody lived in peace until this all spilled out on that sort of basis. And the more deaths you get on both sides, the more resentment that's going to build and division as a result.
I'd say the resentment is there. For me, though, the focus is how are we moving forward now? Because you have mosques, unfortunately, in this country who are preaching hate. This is happening on Friday nights across the country. This has been happening for the last year.
Yeah,
these mosques are receiving...
Before then.
Of course it is.
Children, I don't know if you're aware of this, but Jewish schools, way before this, since the 1970s, have had to have extra security, and so have synagogues.
Yeah.
You know, I don't see that the Muslim schools and the mosques have to have this level of security.
No.
Yeah.
And the Jews are a minority. They are a minority in this country.
250,000.
Yeah, a tiny amount.
And it's absolutely horrendous to say nobody should live in fear. And it's been a community...
Children going to school having to be scared. This is terrible. The government need to really crack down on this.
This is it, then. I mean, arguably, the Tories were getting better. They dropped the ball as they've dropped the ball many times over the last 14 years. Now you have the Labour government. Then they're trying to appease every side and mess it up.
You need to call it out on both sides. There's been genocide, as you say, on what's happening with some of the Palestinians. You see some of that...
There's no genocide on Palestinians at all.
No.
Well, you talk about the number on that sort of people being driven out.
When are they going to start saying that they've made
Sorry, that's not a genocide.
When are they going to start saying they made a gas chamber in Gaza? I'm waiting for it. They put
kind
famine,
of comparison
everything.
I'm sorry, I just find deeply offensive and factually incorrect. But again, to try and grab back to the situation, forget the Middle East. People here watching this in the UK, this is our society that's being affected by this, and I believe it's our society that's being detrimentally affected by this, and steps need to be taken to address it. So that's all the point I'm trying to raise.
And you make it very well. And I think what we need to do is we turn down the narrative. We put more light and less heat on the situation. And words are offensive. And that's why
I think more heat. More heat. All right, time for a breather now. But coming up, we will assess the week's winners and losers between Kemi Badenoch, Dawn Butler and James Blunt, as well as Culture Corner and what happened next. I promise you, we will get funny. Welcome back to Saturday Night Showdown, and it's now time to go through the winners and losers of the week. First up, in an article for The Telegraph, Kemi Badenoch said that not all cultures are equally valid, and failing to recognise that is naive. And then she robustly defended her comments in an interview with the BBC last weekend. Let's have a quick look.
Now, you've written this morning about immigration, and you write that we cannot assume that all cultures are equally valid. So which cultures, in your view, are less valid than others?
Oh, lots. Cultures that believe in child marriage, for instance, or that women don't have equal rights. I actually think it's extraordinary that people think that's an unusual or controversial thing to say.
Well, Andrew, both of you, what do you think? Is she correct?
Well, I think it's unusual that she would say that. I mean, of course, all cultures are valid. You can't turn around and say some cultures are... It's Animal Farm, isn't it? You're working on that sort of basis. It's nonsense, absolute nonsense.
Sorry. So you're saying that it's nonsense that some cultures are less valid? I mean, maybe valid is the wrong word.
It's nonsense that's what she's saying, if that is what she meant by it. I'm not quite sure the context.
Well, I think what she's saying is that there's this sort of idea of cultural relativism where all cultures are equal.
Right.
And that's just not the case, because some cultures have child marriage or female genital mutilation.
From that point of view...
So you can't say all cultures are valid. And the fact is, if you can't say all cultures are equal in that sense, in a moral sense, in which case... Do we want cultures coming over who have different values to what we want?
So that's very different. So, you know, if that's what she meant, there are certain things that are absolutely wrong with certain cultures, and that's what we sort of turn down that sort of basis. If it's respect, then we need to call out the things which are abhorrent and against our laws and regulations. That's got to be right.
In this particular case, you received a lot of criticism from people trying to say... even saying that that statement there was racist. Yeah. And it's not at all.
The problem is this, Josh.
Obvious.
No, the problem is this, Josh, is that she wasn't very clear, and the devil's in the details. You turn around and say, everybody should be respected, that's absolutely right, but certain rules and customs in certain civilisations are wrong, as you say, like child marriage and so on and so forth. That's what we need to do. When you make a general statement, it will get misinterpreted. She's supposed to be in politics, as somebody in politics is supposed to be a clear communicator, and she should make the point, say, I disagree with this as a policy and so on and so forth, but we want to respect cultures.
What's more important is she going to do anything about it when she's in power?
Yeah, simple. The rules and regulations of this country need to be respected by everybody who's here. And that would deal with a lot of the issues that you mentioned.
If you go to Saudi Arabia or Dubai, I'm not going to go and start saying, no, I'm not going to, you know, I'm going to drink alcohol and I'm going to have my hair out. No, I'm going to respect their rules.
Although, fair enough, I wouldn't want to live in Dubai.
Yes.
No, fine, but I would respect their rules. That is a Muslim country, I will respect their rules. This is a Western country, and you respect
And that's a much clearer message than the word salad that Kemi was talking about, because people have misunderstood misunderstood, misinterpreted what she said. If you're clear about that, when in Rome, do what Romans do. That's our rules and regulations.
People deliberately wanted to misrepresent her or misunderstand her. Anyway, next up we have Dawn Butler, who's published arguably a racialist black nationalist poem in which she declares herself to be one of the chosen ones. We'll get into that in a second. And GB News' very own Charlie Peters revealed that some of the Black Power activists featured in the video have been convicted of murder and rape. And journalist Melanie McDonough said in The Spectator magazine, "What I think she is saying is that because human civilization originated in Africa and her own ethnic origins are African, that she is a cut above the rest of us." Anyway, let's have a look at this video.
You are the wrong one, the violent one, the weird one, whereas I am the chosen one, because I am of the first ones. You see this skin I'm in, this beautiful mahogany brown, this skin you don't like, I believe. So why you try so hard to achieve by burning yourself in the sun? For me, there's no need, because I am the chosen one, for I am of the first ones. I know I'm black and beautiful, an African freedom fighter. My skin is my protection, and you, my friend, don't matter.
I mean, that's outrageous. I mean, that final bit we saw, the montage of the people, were, like you say, some of those people are terrorists and murderers. Yeah, I mean, the optics they always say on this are rubbish. And people... history repeats itself because people don't learn the lessons from history. And they will know. Dawn Butler would have known that people are going to scrutinise that video. Look who's along there. These are the people she's associating with and claiming that on that sort of basis. So it was... whoever was advising her, or maybe she disregarded them, has clearly got it wrong. I think also, just forgetting even that the inclusion of those images... I feel like the message was wrong. She also talks about, like, how you want to burn your skin to look like us, and it's just like it's separate. It is true.
I do sunbathe to the point. I do, but I do envy black people. They don't have to worry about sunbathing and things like that. So I do sunbathe to make myself as dark as possible. She got 1 point there.
Well, there we go.
This idea of being the chosen people, I mean, it's fine as someone who's Jewish, but the idea of the chosen people is a very contentious idea. And in Judaism, it actually doesn't come from this idea of actually being better. It's the idea is that God... if you want to get boring about this, God offered the Torah to everybody else, and everyone else turned it down, and the Jews finally said, all right, we'll take it on. But anyway... this idea...
chosen for what?
Well,
there you go, right?
Well, this is it.
For heaven and the path and everything. No, but you're right to call it out. I don't think she didn't misrepresent what she thinks. I mean, she clearly thinks that, and she clearly wants to make a video on that sort of basis. But the backlash to that is going to be so obvious. Whenever you're saying you're the chosen one and you're not in, it's going to cause resentment.
It's just like there's nothing wrong with being proud of your identity or ethnic identity, whatever it is, being proud. But when that proudness comes at the derision of the other that isn't you, then it's...
But the message is really, I'm better than you, and therefore you're a lesser person.
That seems to be her message.
And that's wrong. It's got to be wrong, doesn't it? Yeah, and it's, you know, we got the start of Black History Month this week, and you know, and that's what she filmed it for. But I don't know. I mean, some people would say that it was fine that she was just being proud of her identity and there was nothing more to it. But certainly, as you say, the inclusion of images of terrorist murderers sort of undermines it's not good. What I find really extraordinary is the more that I speak, the more my chair goes down. So it's like... I know. It's
a good job I'm short.
It's a psychological one. If I disappear in between
and I'll look tall.
It's actually, I have a button under here. Right. Every time you say something I don't like, I just push it and you just go down a little bit. No, you're right. It has to be respect for everybody in the conversation, and turning around to anybody and say, I'm better than you and therefore you're rubbish is not a good message. So from that point of view, we're talking about equality, we're talking about respect and understanding cultures and so on and so forth. Certain things which are abhorrent, as we say, for laws and regulations in our country need to be called out. But the principle is all people deserve respect.
Are you saying that all races are equal, but not all cultures?
I'm saying all people deserve respect, and I think claiming that you're much better than anybody else is wrong. Oh, OK, I would agree with that, except for I'd say some people don't deserve respect. Terrorists, Hamas, whatever.
But I do agree that...
And that's their behaviour, you're right. Yes, we agree on that. OK, right. Finally, James Blunt has said he'll legally change his name to whatever fans choose. So, as long as his album gets to #1 in the charts, Blunty McBluntface was among the names favoured by the public. Others included Blames Junt and James
Quarter.
Oh, how funny.
So, what is this? I mean, I was going to say, is this a gimmick? It's
totally a gimmick. I saw the interview on Chris Moyle's show, and this is what he says. He's desperate to be back in the charts again. It is desperation. He says his #1 fan will be there and supporting him. But it's all going to be Boaty McBoatface again, isn't it?
Did anyone offer James see you next Tuesday?
No, that could be the... Well,
he mentioned that. He mentioned that, and I won't say it here because it's far too early.
It just took me a second to put it together in my brain what you were actually...
Yes, he did say that because people have worked on that sort of basis.
OK, I'm late to the game.
He's quite a funny guy. If you follow him on
X,
very
funny and he's very talented.
And he's also very self-deprecating. Singing a song like 20 years ago or
beautiful.
something. Yeah, that one. Yeah.
So he's got his new album out.
About Andrew.
It was. He talked about
Andrew
me.
on the tube.
He did. It's stunning. He dribbled in anticipation. It's going to be lovely. The reality was exactly that, is that he's about publicity. The fact we're talking about Chris Moyles has spoken about it, the clip's gone viral. I'm sure he will. I hope he does. I hope he gets to #1 and he'll change his name to Taylor Swift and then it'll always be at #1. It's going to be good.
Oh, that's a very good idea. Right, more messages from our sponsors now, but come back for the Great British Sperm Shortage and ice hockey escapades. See you in 2. Welcome back to Saturday Night Showdown with me, Josh Howie. A primary school that introduced a muddy play area has apologised to parents after their children came home caked in mud. Holsworthy Primary School in Devon brought in the new feature for its students to encourage them to engage with the great outdoors. But the school has now said sorry to mothers and fathers, saying this journey is new after children were leaving school muddy. Now, this is slightly ridiculous. Kids need to play... And play in mud is a good thing, right?
It's a very good thing. You have to tell the parents they're going to do it, because if you actually saw the photos, it is not just a little bit of mud and playing. They come caked in the stuff afterwards, which as a kid is brilliant. I love the fact there are 333 pupils at this particular school, so half the sign of the devil, but they're all going home. You need to talk to your parents about it, so they come with appropriate kits on, and that's what they've done. And they've now spoken about it, saying, OK, we're going to send the right clothes, because you can work it out. They're going to school in their school uniform, and they're coming back caked. That's not the headline, is it? They're sort of turning around and saying, we're stopping play, which is not quite what happened.
I mean, I actually have a bit of expertise in the story here, because I was on the playground designing committee for my school, and we had a big presentation.
Yes.
And this is very much it's all the future, the science of playgrounds now, and it's all about being hands-on. It's about them playing with different shapes and objects and actually risking danger, getting dirty.
Yes.
That is the protectionism of children has just gone too far, arguably.
Listen, I am one of those awful parents that if my kid has even a speck of, like, dirt on their trainers, I'm like, get off!
Well, trainers cost hundreds of pounds.
Yes. That's an annoying part of me. But the other side of me is that I really do believe... I agree with you. Children need to...
They've got to get dirty.
Need to dive into the mud and get off those screens.
Yeah.
Get in the playgrounds, get in the mud, get in the forest, the sea... Nature.
But like Josh, I was also the PTA president, and we used to look at these things. When we were growing up, though, remember they used to have this concrete playground. When you fell off the slide, you'd probably
break your neck.
Break your neck. Now
days.
they have this little bouncy, fluffy stuff. You've got to get kids actually enjoying themselves. Get a bit more creative. Get off your screens, and playing around in mud is brilliant. But tell the parents so they can give them proper clothes.
I'm one of the... we have a playground near the school, and only about 15 of the children out of the whole school go there. They just get back to the house, put on the screen, plug them in so the parents can plug themselves in on their phone.
Sounds like we're unanimous here. More mud, the better.
More mud.
Yes. Not on trainers, not on white trainers.
OK, then. Now, sperm donors are in for a treat, a £10 treat, in fact. For the first time in 13 years, there will be an increase in the amount paid to sperm donors. From October, compensation will rise from £35 to a whopping £45. Egg donations will also rise from £750 to £985. Sperm is cheap, eggs are expensive, as the saying goes. So, Andrew, that's a lot of extra pocket money for you.
Thank you. I'd like to keep a hand in, as they say. We can get all of our 12-year-old gags out now, can't we? The reality is this, however, it's not just... And they emphasise, it's not just about the finance. There's a responsibility. If you father a child, even through a donation, that child may one day want to know who their biological parent is, and you work on that sort of basis. It's more for eggs, because I understand that, and it's actually... For those who need it, it is a fantastic service. The The reason they bumped up the money a bit is to try and encourage people to come forward, because there's a lot of people who are missing out as a result, and they want to have the joy of children.
Seemingly a humorous story, but there is a serious edge to this, right?
It's a declining birth rate. I don't think that's such a bad thing, actually. Declining population is quite a good thing. We had it in the 80s and life was better. I've always said that. We had a declining population.
But you need a population to pay for the more numerous old people. Otherwise, a society collapses.
Then you bring in people on visas like Dubai have.
Well, it's short-term
But I
visas,
do not believe that everyone should just say, you know, I want 10 kids, 5 kids, so we can look after old people.
Yeah, I don't think this.
It's
the
like a
sperm donor
never-ending
for 10
cycle
kids.
it
It's not. I think it's for people who can't have kids in that sort of way.
I think they need all the help they can get,
absolutely.
especially because people are waiting for longer now, and that's the issue. That's why a lot of people are having challenges when it comes to getting pregnant. It's because they're waiting so long and wasting their time on those dating apps. Just get off the dating apps and go talk to women, guys, and everything's a bit more quick.
But this is really helping people who can't have children. They need IVF and
But a lot of it is
so
because they've waited for a long time.
Maybe.
A lot of it.
Maybe. And people having children later, but they're very expensive.
Which is nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that a lot of it is because it's a lot of dilly-dallying on dating apps and getting nowhere, thinking it's a shortcut, and then suddenly you're 35, 38, 40, and it's like...
But it's not necessarily dating apps. It's been our society has moved in this direction for a long time now. It seems to be more about trying to achieve some kind of financial security.
That too, absolutely. That's the big one.
That's the problem. People now, heating and eating, you've got those sort of choices. Bringing up children is incredibly expensive. You work on that. I think somebody works out...
You're speaking to the wrong person.
Oh, my God.
But they worked it out, I think it's about £250,000 to pay, and that's before even if you don't do private school fees. If you look at clothing and eating and heating and all that sort of stuff, to bring up a child about £250,000, that's what they worked out.
I need to donate some sperm.
Well, you can do that.
It obviously works.
Stop buying your kids white trainers.
Ah, there you go. They get too muddy in the muddy playgrounds, don't they? It's got to be good.
Very good. Right, finally... Back in June, a debate on the Israel-Hamas war at the prestigious Durham Union was shut down after a mob of pro-Palestine activists descended on the event, reportedly banging on doors and windows and preventing attendees from leaving. The university faced criticism for the decision, with many arguing the protesters should have been dealt with instead. Now, the former union president took to X to highlight that the Durham Union has left out this year's Freshers' Fair, calling the decision a domino effect from the debate cancellation. Durham University Students' Union is emphatic in its principles of equality and inclusion and insists the decision was made as a result of an advertising dispute after the DU allegedly failed to stamp out racism within the organisation. Is this a free speech row or a simple disagreement?
I went to Durham, I can tell you.
All is revealed, everything is revealed.
No, if freedom of speech means anything, liberty means anything, it is the right to tell people what they don't want to hear. What we don't have, again, the devil is in the detail of this. If they're turning around and saying you can't debate these things, that's clearly wrong. If there's a turnaround about the principles and laws and regulations within the university, that's what we need to look at. What's not clear in this story is that headline. And it's very easy for people to turn around and say, look, freedom of speech, we're shutting that down. If that's really what's happening, that is clearly wrong. And I'll be surprised that Durham would do that. It's crazy. And it's actually even worse than that, because the Freedom of Speech, the Higher Education Act of 2023, got royal assent. And all they had to do was to implement it as this Labour government turned around and said, we're not going to do it.
Well, there's argument there that people are saying it might be because of China, because there are outpost universities in China, and that would have prevented, or they want to prevent, criticism of China. Anyway, just the final section to go, and coming up next on Saturday Night Showdown, we'll be discussing a man who contacted his bank to try and get his money back after feeling disappointed by a session with 2 expensive escorts he hired. Now, I've tried that, it doesn't work. Plus, I'll show you the ice hockey brawl that led to arrest. See you in 2. Welcome back to Saturday Night Showdown with me, Josh Howie. Now, one brave fellow took his shot at trying to get a refund from his bank after hiring 2 escorts for £8,000 for a 3-hour gig. The customer, who felt disappointed by his experience, tried to get his money back from using Barclays by using rules designed for scam victims. Barclays, who are unable to understand the exact arrangement between the man and the 2 escorts, advised him to pursue a civil case. Disappointed by his experience with Barclays, he then complained to the UK financial regulators, but his claim was denied. Andrew, I didn't know you had £8,000 spare.
I've got lots of money to spare. You know, I've got chairs that work as well. I'll tell you what it is. Section 75 of the Consumer Credit Act entitles people to take action against their credit card companies, basically if there's breach of contract or misrepresentation.
Yes.
So that's what the story is. What's not clear in this is what was the misrepresentation. What was he expecting from his escorts?
What was
it?
What was it?
They didn't look like their photos.
Is that...
It's always the case, I'm telling you.
How many? You've been to a lot of escorts?
I looked at an escort site for women, actually. I was quite interested.
Yes.
And we don't have the fine selection that you guys have.
Oh, right.
Oh.
No, but women don't want.
I was expecting Richard Gere from Gigolo.
Yeah, more was it? More me. Don't.
Were you? But I'm sure now that you've said this, there's a hole in the market, and all the people will be contacting you to set up this new agency.
I think there should be like strip clubs for women and everything.
There are strip clubs for women. There's things like
you need really good
Magic Mike.
Yes, come on. There's loads of this sort of stuff, and Chippendales.
It's
That's a great Friday night out, by the way.
And a Saturday night and a Thursday night.
We want private dances and stuff where no one's looking. I don't want, like, a man to be, like, dancing all over me whilst everyone's looking at me, because I can't, like, you know...
So you want a private booth?
Yeah,
Is that okay?
I want to have a feel.
Revealing way too much information.
Well, I'm sure Josh and I will set up this new business. Gentlemen, get in touch. We're going to sort this out. We've got... How big's the clientele? What do you reckon? Is this a massive demand?
No, it's probably just me going to be on my own.
You have one client, but get in touch.
You want to invest. Right. Now, a Russian spy ice hockey team recently took part in a match that descended into a mass brawl. Apparently, after the Russian spy team lost, they arrested the opposition players on charges of hooliganism, which carry a maximum prison sentence of 7 years. Let's have a look. So that was the Russian team there attacking the Secret Service. Why would you want to do that? Why do they think that those were the guys to attack?
You're so right. And these ice hockey matches are so violent normally, but they're all separate ones. They weren't all piling into one big lump. They're all sort of, I'll take you on, I'll take them on. It's extraordinary.
I know, but it's surely self-preservation. You wouldn't want to attack.
I think you're probably right on that basis. I think because it's not just that. It's not just during the match. What happens after the match? Well, this
is what's happened. They've been arrested now. They're going to be visited in the middle of the night. But then at the same time, you're in the moment. You're a big ice hockey fan.
Huge.
You love it.
Tell from your expression.
Yes.
You play it as well. Like you're a goalie.
Yep. Done all that. Yep.
But yes. Not that you can necessarily accuse. I don't want to speak disparagingly of ice hockey players, but perhaps they're not the most intelligent.
Oh, no, they are very intelligent.
No,
they're very intelligent.
I actually know a few.
There you go.
I don't play it,
They're on this dating app, aren't they?
Now she gets interested.
They're in the strip club.
Oh, they're in the strip club, is that what? An ice with a slice. Is that what you do? Incredible. Work on that basis.
This out, just like down some vodkas or something.
You would think this is how they would normally do it.
The most civilised way.
It is a very violent. Have you seen them?
Way.
It is very violent. The sport is very violent anyway.
It is aggressive.
And they do that. But I've never seen it where they all collapse on that.
Have you not watched any? There are millions of films where this is exactly what happens.
Yes.
But again, it's like I wonder if they saw this as their opportunity to take revenge.
That often happens
on them as well, and now then it's sort of massively backfired. Of course, what stays on the pitch, what goes on the pitch, is meant to stay on the pitch. But imagine when people have sort of life and death decisions over you.
Yes, I think it's a bit worrying. It's rather like challenging somebody to a boxing match, which everybody seems to do now. When you have a disagreement in public, you challenge, like Musk versus Zuckerberg or stuff like that. They all try and do that. They should maybe do hockey matches.
Cockfighting, isn't it?
It is, yes.
But I'm not going to challenge the secret police to a boxing.
I think you're probably right. A wise move, Josh. I think that's got to be good.
I think everybody hopefully has learned some lesson there.
Yes.
Well, all that's left then is for me to say thank you to my brilliant panel, Kasia Noble and Andrew Eborn. Leo will be back next week, no doubt, to tell you about his adventures in Australia. Next is the wonderful and very groomed Mark Dolan. And don't forget, Headliners is tonight at 11 p.m. Thank you for joining us.
Hurrah!